Farooq, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
The reason I'm very happy to have you on the show is because the pandemic for me, like many people, was probably, among the hardest experiences of my life. You were a friend who I made during the pandemic. So basically, you have seen me pretty much at my worst, and you were just like super friendly and a nice guy that I had never met before. We were introed by a mutual acquaintance, and we just became friends. And I just thought that was like great because this is an industry that, depending on how you treat it, is either a very fun collaborative environment or a Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Some people treat it more like a Shark Tank. Some people treat it more like a collaborative environment. It's obviously both. In some level, it's both. It is zero sum, but it's also positive sum. That's what's interesting about venture. Scaling a SQL cluster has historically been a difficult task. CockroachDB makes scaling your relational database much easier. CockroachDB is a distributed SQL database that makes it simple to build resilient, scalable applications quickly. CockroachDB is Postgres compatible, giving the same familiar SQL interface that database developers have used for years. But unlike older databases, scaling with CockroachDB is handled within the database itself, so you don't need to manage shards from your client application. And because the data is distributed, you won't lose data if a machine or data center goes down. CockroachDB is resilient and adaptable to any environment. You can host it on-prem, you can run it in a hybrid cloud, and you can even deploy it across multiple clouds. Some of the world's largest banks and massive online retailers and popular gaming platforms and developers from companies of all sizes trust CockroachDB with their most critical data. Sign up for a free 30-day trial and get a free t-shirt at cockroachlabs.com/sedaily. Thanks to Cockroach Labs for being a sponsor, and nice work with CockroachDB. So, I think we got a lot of ground to cover, and the place to start is what you are iconic of. And what you are iconic of is the shift and the decentralization of venture capital. Essentially, the concept that venture capital has gotten blown up, basically, and the pieces are falling to the ground as the venture capital world reconfigures itself in an environment where computing is undergoing a complete renaissance.
Yep.
Capital markets are undergoing a complete renaissance. Digital transformation, cloud, lots of forces are changing the market dynamics. Your positioning there is solo GP. You've just raised your second fund, which is what, 30 million?
23.1.
23.1. So your first one was 10?
Small. It was like a friends and family vehicle, and it was about 1.1 million bucks.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
So this is fund one. Really.
So this is so perfect because there's a lot of people listening that are sort of like, I don't know what the heck to do in my career. I'm basically lost in my career. I want to be a venture capitalist. They decide they want to be a venture capitalist. They want to be a solo GP. You're sort of iconic of that. Tell me a little bit about how you position yourself for long-term prosperity while operating essentially as a solo GP.
Yeah, great question. And again, I've been a long time listener of the show, and I love this show so much. By the way, I think you do a super good job. I always learn from it. So for the listeners who are interested in venture and investing, it's a lifelong love and journey. It's not like this stuff doesn't happen overnight. I mean, honestly, I started investing and truly deploying capital in 2013, and only like in the past 2 years have I had a couple of IPOs. Like, it takes time, like better part of the decade. How to position for prosperity. So for one, at least on a more personal and fulfillment level, you have to just be yourself. That like the best version for prosperity and success, in my opinion, is like long-term yourself and like long-term oriented growth. So for me, I worked at a handful of different venture capital funds. I was always drawn to early stage. And for some reason, no matter where my partners asked me to look in certain areas or geographies, I always wanted to look more in enterprise infrastructure, which was which is fantastic. I find it intellectually stimulating. I like the people. And I love that it was sort of like a meta way to think, okay, data goes from here to here, then it goes to this cloud application. Oh, the security team's pissed off at the build team for doing this too quickly, and like how to make this life better. And also, by the way, for me, from like a fulfillment perspective, I just felt so good that, I don't think people in this world know how unsecure our environment is from a cybersecurity perspective. And when you go and do business online with anyone, Capital One, you buy something online, you buy a gift, you were giving your credit card information and personal details that's mishmashed together with metadata. Anyway, like I learned that this industry was really good and useful for me and it fit with me, but then the sub market was really good and it fit with me too. And that answer is not the same for everyone. Like some people have different affinities. Some people might be, let's say even in venture, there's consumer, but let's just say within enterprise is so big. You could be like a bottoms up person, bottoms up SaaS person. You could be oriented towards sales and marketing technology and that kind of automation. You could like storage a lot, and this market changes so quickly. Even people, and again, with due respect, people who have had exits of hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars, if they're not in it for even 2 or 3 years, the whole market changes. So anyway, find the thing that like feels right for you from an intellectual perspective. Be around the people that help you grow and you learn from them and you teach them in some ways too. And just stay. Just stay and don't get distracted and continue because, on a macro level, 65% of the market share and 58% of the companies that have gone public started with the help of a venture capitalist, not started by a VC. I don't want to be so bold to say that because it's the entrepreneurs that do really all the work, but we're important too. Sorry, long answer to your short question.
Great answer. So the enterprise point, there are going to be people who are listening to this podcast and their core competencies as a software engineer. And their passion is to create software. They think creatively. They want to be a creative software engineer. They may even be coming from a college campus or a software boot camp. When they hear the words enterprise software, they think that's really boring. That's not interesting. Actually, what enterprise software really means is software that is built within a decision-making and economic infrastructure that is more rational than consumer. That's all it means.
Really good.
That's all it means.
That's a great summary.
That's literally all it means. So like if you want to play with irrational people, you go to consumer. If you want to play with rational people, you go to enterprise. And obviously there's it's a gradation, right? But it's literally rationality versus irrationality.
Nice.
Do you want to have some ridiculous growth hack that just plays off of humans' irrationality? Like, do you want to play in that environment? Or do you want to play in the highly rational, look, I made a WYSIWYG editor for nonprofit like event sales or something like super, super niche. I know exactly who my customer is, but perhaps my market is bounded. The excitement about the excitement level of the business is bounded. And then you have something in between. You have the consumerization of the enterprise. The reason the consumerization of the enterprise business is so appealing is because you have that sweet spot where you have a clear market demographic, but also that universal, like id-driven consumerization irrationality thing. Like Slack is simultaneously a rational person's product and an irrational person's product. So do you agree with that thesis? Like from what I can tell, if you want to place the bets with the highest upside, you're kind of going after consumerization of the enterprise. Just a crazy thesis.
Yeah. Well, actually, so I want to answer your question, but I'll give you some data and quant for the consumer versus enterprise piece. If you look in the last years, there's been about $1 trillion in enterprise value that's been, and this year's been crazy, by the way, $1 trillion in enterprise value that's been created from enterprise software and infrastructure. And in consumer, it's been around 700 billion. And if you take away the top 5 exits from the consumer side, like, Uber and DoorDash and that number slashes about in half. And so there's a greater loss ratio, to use a technical term, as a venture capitalist and consumer on average. So basically like the number of the percentage of dollars that one invests as a consumer VC that returns less than one is lower. And an enterprise, it's not like that at all. It's way more distributed. There's so many companies. I think about all the buyers in this market. I think, okay, fine. In consumer, there's Amazon, there's Google, there's some of the delivery companies. Then you have the Google for XGO or YGO. Man, an enterprise infrastructure, like you'd be like, Oracle can buy this, or this is going to compete with Cisco, or this is going to compete with Microsoft's enterprise part of the business. Like there's so many more companies. So anyway, I love your thesis. I do agree with it, and that's such an interesting tension. And for the consumeration of enterprise like products and like the usage, it has to be massish market and mass usage. And so what are the tools that people use every single day? It's like communications and marketing typically. Can you tell me a little bit more? Tell me a little bit more about like where does it bring you to?
Here's the big upheaval that's actually happening right now. COVID, this was already happening before COVID, but here's what's really been laid bare by COVID. Essentially, every major corporation has a hair on fire problem right now, and many of them don't even realize it. The hair on fire problem is your employees don't want to work at your company. They don't want to go and work at your HQ. You've got all this dead weight in terms of cost and operations. A lot of it is associated with on-prem workforce. On-prem workforce is not happening anymore. These companies that are trying to make their employees go back to the office, Amazon or Google or whatever, they're trying to make fetch happen. Like, fetch is not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Like these employees, I mean, I talk to these employees on a regular basis. They're like, yeah, I'm going back to the office now. I'm like, why? What are you doing? And they're like, well, they're asking me to. I'm like, quit.
So
Leave.
You have choices.
Literally, do you have a reason that you have to stay there? Do you have green card issues? If you don't, leave.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Like you have no reason to work at this place. And if you want to work at a bigger corporation, you should be figuring out how to work from home most optimally. If you want to work from an office, you should construct your own office and you should expense it to the company. Like that's the amount of leverage you have as an engineer these days. Like
you have human agency you could push. Exactly.
Flatfile, for example, like Flatfile is really pioneering. Flatfile says you join Flatfile, you're going to work on a remote workforce. We're going to put $10,000 into decking you out with a nice office.
Nice one.
So you want to go work at WeWork, go do that. You want to construct your own office, do that. I interviewed the Flatfile CEO. He was literally, his home office was undergoing construction. And at first I was like, that's kind of gaudy. And then I realized that's not gaudy at all. That's very, very intelligent because you work so much more effectively in a home office that is amenable to your taste.
Yep.
We know that there are issues with home offices. We know that there are things like, I've got kids at home. I live in a cramped apartment in New York. These things are sort of edge cases. And they're things that can be worked around. So this is really the core upheaval that's going on. It's totally upending everything. It's changing everything.
Yeah. And by the way, I talk about tech companies a lot. My brother works at Amgen. Amgen just gave a policy for complete, you don't need to come back to the office ever. Amgen, the biotech company.
Right.
It's incredible.
Right. So, okay, this is a perfect jumping off point. So that example, what's their policy for the people that have to come to the labs?
So they definitely have people. Well, so they use what's the term? Like third parties to execute clinical trials, CROs, contract research organizations to do that. They definitely have clinical trials and stuff happens in house. I don't know the exact details, so I don't want to misspeak, but there is some categorization for the kind of job and function that you have to do. Like if it's like mission critical like that, like where you literally have to touch the thing and mess around with it, you have to come in, but really, really flexible. Like this is across the entire company. My brother's never come. Well, I don't think he's like, he really enjoys and he's super productive at his house, and he actually added a part like a section to his home to sort of build this like Flatfile-esque place of perfection.
Yeah, so I'm like building these companies now, and what I've realized is basically the way that offer letters and offers have been done in the past is totally outmoded. So in today's environment, if you find anybody that you want to work at your fast-growing, high-potential company, you basically have to say, here's a blank check. Give us the first offer. Tell us where to anchor the conversation. If you enter into a conversation with a new hire saying, here's where I'm anchoring the conversation, you will immediately set yourself up for failure with that employee, because the days of the adversarial relationship between the corporation and the individual are over. That's basically what happened during COVID, because if you don't like where you work, you go start a newsletter.
Yeah.
Like,
no, there are plenty of more options, and they should be viewed as partners, like a partnership. And I know who is it? Even like was it Lattice, Jack Altman's company? Like if an employee leaves, they'll just write a check. Like
yes.
that's amazingly supportive, and like that's the kind of stuff. I mean, and there've been actually software tools like trying to like figure out how to like monetize alumni networks and do it in a really transactional way. But if you truly just treat people good and honorably, and maybe not exactly in the way that you describe, like blank check, but like more of an open conversation, a lot of good things can happen, and people will be with you forever.
Right, and eventually,
figuratively,
figuratively. So, like, but eventually, what it becomes is like, if you leave Lattice, Tiger gives you a check. Right? It's not just Jack Altman. It's like Tiger gives you a check.
Yeah.
Is that your food?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm starving.
All right.
My
So
flight came in at
Farooq is literally
12:30.
starving. Okay, go grab your food.
Give me 1 second.
I will monologue a little bit. So I'm wearing a ridiculous outfit right now. I did it on purpose. I have a SoftBank hat that I got at Ondeck. I have a Dev shirt. Dev is the first company that I ever invested in. And then I have a Sequoia jacket because I'm affiliated with Sequoia. I hope people have read Move Fast. It's the book I'm working on, or it just finished, I guess, just released. You can get it for free as a podcast. All right. You got your food?
I did.
Awesome. All right. So we'll just like chat while you chow down. Like, I think this is postmodern podcasting.
Postmodern.
So you got, is that boba? So you got boba and a wrap or something?
No, yeah. So this is an iced latte. Yeah, I don't know if it's a little cliche, but I missed the Grove. So I don't live in San Francisco right now. I live in Los Angeles, but the Grove is always a soft spot for me.
Grove is great. Okay, here's a Grove story. Since you got to take out your food,
I love Grove stories,
dude. The best Grove story. Do you know who Warren Hoffman is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have
you met him? Have you talked to him?
I have talked to him. I've never met him before.
So Warren Hoffman is transcendental level business philosopher guy. Many people don't know who he is. I'm always talking about how good his
he's also a really good investor.
Very good investor.
Yeah. In markets that are not so like common and typical, like ad tech and marketing technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'd love to talk to you about ad tech. But so Warren Hoffman, I met him for the first time at the Grove. I think it was there's a Yerba Buena location. I think that's where I went. That's where I met him.
That's the go-to.
Close to the Yerba Buena is the Grove Yerba Buena actually the one that's in Yerba Buena Gardens? Or is it like just below the Yerba Buena Gardens?
It's just below.
Just below the Yerba Buena Gardens. So that's where I met him. He arrives literally to the minute at the time when we're supposed to meet. I just see out of the corner of my eye this guy walking past the window. I've never met Warren Hoffman before. I just knew him from Quora. He was kind enough to meet me in person, even though he's this executive. I'm this random that just left. I had literally left Amazon to start this podcast. I was in between Amazon and the podcast. I had to pay back my signing bonus to Amazon. I had like 15 grand in the bank. I'm like,
wow.
Let's see if I can make this work. So I'm like meeting with Warren Hoffman. I meet with Warren Hoffman. I'm like telling him, dude, you can eat. Seriously.
Oh yeah, I'm going to
chow down. So I'm meeting with Warren Hoffman, and like the first thing he says, I think, was something like, "So you were at Amazon for what, 5 minutes?" Because I had worked at Amazon for 8 months.
That's funny.
Only 8 months. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like a little embarrassed. And then we just start talking about ideas. And it was one of the most invigorating conversations I've ever had, because I had just left Amazon. I basically had like I had like 2 or 3 ideas. I ended up doing Software Engineering Daily. Like, Software Engineering Daily was the main thing, but I wanted to run these like crazier ideas by Oren. And basically by running them through his filter, I was able to very clearly know that Software Engineering Daily was the thing to start.
That's so cool that small interaction helped. I'm sure it's good to always say thank you. And so I'm sure he knows via this thank you.
Oh yeah. So he's coming on the show in another month or so, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's what's cool about Silicon Valley, why you should move back. Calling you out publicly for not living here anymore. I really want to hang out with you more.
Definitely.
But like, that's what you get out of Silicon Valley. Is you still get that today, by the way. Most people didn't leave Silicon Valley.
Yeah. No. This will remain and be a very, very important part of the innovation ecosystem. I mean, all the big companies are here and a lot of people. You know what I'll highlight though? Of the 16 companies that I've invested in Fund 2, only 4 of them are Bay Area focused, or sorry, Bay Area headquartered. Others, Boston, Denver, a bunch in New York, Toronto, even Vancouver, Victoria. So, you know.
Right. So I mean, I get you there. Like, okay, the location agnostic and Calendly. Calendly's in Kansas City, right?
Or maybe Atlanta.
Or Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, we know this.
I'm so happy I'm eating, by the way. I was starving. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you're eating too. Listen, man, you're in town to celebrate, right? We're going to
Mhm.
celebrate. We're going to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, so okay, we have location agnosticism. I get that. And by the way, if you want to go build a company in Atlanta, if you want to be one of the people to plant a flag, so here's the thing, right? We're at stage 0 in basically a global renaissance in computing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on. We're in stage 0. AWS essentially kicked off a new industrial revolution. And that's what's going on right now. We have AWS on the supply side, we have mobile on the demand side, and we just have an expanding supply demand curve.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, if you think about it from fundamental economic perspectives, and then like you have things like crypto that are just like adding a third dimension to that economic expansion frontier.
Next decade is gonna be insane.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
And we're in a great place for it.
On that note, I was talking to somebody this morning. I've been talking to actually a lot of people. So a very good friend of mine who's a very, very top tier investor basically is tapped out. Like literally there is so much opportunity. He's tapped out. He's working 7 days a week. He's just maxed out, which is kind of the environment we're in. Like people are drowning in opportunity. Or do you feel that way? Or do you feel like you're just on the cusp? It's if you're not there yet, you will be in 5 to 12 months. Like you're literally going to be drowning in opportunity because there's too many good deals.
It's a great point. And I think it was Mike Maples who said this elegantly, just like your fund size is your strategy. So I don't know about your top tier friend where he or she is from. I choose to only invest 4 to 6 companies per year. And I have a 3-year deployment period versus 2, like a lot of other people. And so saying no is like part of the game. And also getting to know people slowly is quite a good thing. But oh man, like do I feel like remiss that I couldn't invest in this and this and this? I would love to, but it has implications. It's it's responsibility and it's like honor. I mean, you know, for every company that Preface invests in, we have an SLA where we introduce 4 customers in the first 12 months of working together, and then we'll surface and we'll highlight 2 hires that someone should have, like a product marketing manager or something esoteric like a developer evangelist who maybe exited a company before. And like that kind of, even if they don't hire that person, like, or if they don't convert all the customers, like that kind of osmosis is really good outside of someone's network, who often for Preface is usually a VP of engineering of product or engineering who built something internally at a big company like an Oracle or Netflix. And when they self-selected against open source and they built something proprietary, like those are my people. So to your friend, I feel for, is it who? No, don't tell me. He or she? He? She?
It's a he.
It's okay.
But there's also a she that I know that's in the exact.
Oh, sure.
Multiple she's that are in the same.
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
No, 3 I can think of.
I feel that. Saying no is just important because it's about time and focus. Like save your brain power for the right things and the right people and things you're like motivated and passionate by.
Here's a puzzle. What do products like Dropbox, Slack, Zoom, and Asana all have in common? The answer is they were all successful because they became enterprise ready. Becoming enterprise ready means adding security and compliance features required by enterprise IT admins. When you add these features, enterprise users can buy your product, and they'll buy a lot. These features unlock larger deals and faster growth. But enterprise features are super complex to build. They have lots of weird edge cases, and they typically require months or years of precious engineering time. Thankfully, there's now a better solution. WorkOS is a developer platform to make your app enterprise ready. With a few simple APIs, you can immediately add common enterprise features like single sign-on, SAML, SCIM user provisioning, and more. Developers will find beautiful docs and SDKs that make integration a breeze. WorkOS is trying to be like Stripe for enterprise features. WorkOS powers apps like Webflow, Hopin, Vercel, and more than 100 others. The platform is rock solid, fully SOC 2 compliant, and ready for even the largest enterprise environments. So what are you waiting for? Integrate WorkOS today and make your app enterprise ready. To learn more and get started, go to softwareengineeringdaily.com/workOS. That's softwareengineeringdaily.com/workOS. Are you building cloud applications with a distributed team? Check out Teleport, an open-source identity-aware access proxy for cloud resources. Teleport provides secure access to anything running somewhere behind NAT. SSH servers, Kubernetes clusters, internal web apps, and databases, Teleport gives engineers superpowers. Get access to everything via single sign-on with multi-factor. List and see all SSH servers, Kubernetes clusters, or databases available to you. Get instant access to them, all using the tools you already have. Teleport ensures best security practices like role-based access, preventing data exfiltration, providing visibility, and ensuring compliance. Best of all, Teleport doesn't get in the way. Download Teleport at softwareengineeringdaily.com/teleport. That's softwareengineeringdaily.com/teleport. Okay, let's get into process though. So there are these firms, there are these investment organizations that essentially have time-bound processes. And when you have deal flow being aimed at you like a fire hose,
Yeah.
it seems like you may have to change your process. So like, let's take like, just think about like the traditional sort of like Monday morning partner meeting cycle time, right? Like basically deals have, as I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Monday morning partner cycle is sort of like Monday morning is where everybody syncs on the outstanding problems and deals and stuff. And then the rest for the rest of the week, you almost operate completely asynchronously as a firm.
Yeah.
You all synchronize around the Monday morning partner meeting. That's when decisions get made. The cycle time there is too slow. And like firms are having to reckon with that.
Actually, even as a feedback for that, and I'm not sure it's still the case, but I believe Andreessen added a Thursday to it, a Thursday kind
So
of like
multiple,
but they're a minority, and I'm not sure if they still do it, but they definitely used to do it. Most people are Monday only.
Do they centralize decision making into a single like do all the deals have to go through Ben and Mark at that firm?
I don't want to misspeak. I believe they have 8 GPs now, if I'm right, and they have a lot of other people who are like deal partners and other people who are on the market development team and corporate development team. I believe there's greater autonomy. That it's not like just 2 people on the investment committee, and that happens. That happens at firms. Even for the people who started it at some point, it's almost even healthy. It's a good thing. You want people to be more on the investment committee and to be more distributed, because that means you're drawing in good talent and keeping good talent. It's a problem in the Silicon Valley and elsewhere. That's actually one of the reasons why I think a lot of people start their own funds and spin off and create for their own. Deal flow. So we were talking about deal flow and crazy deal flow. I think the way to go about it is to just try to be like a little thematic and have a point of view on stuff, because otherwise your brain will be stretched. It's like
Totally.
It's like just having to multitask too many times, and I don't even feel good about it. I don't feel like honorable if like I'm just like talking to a founder and I'm like just dialing it in and just like asking like pretty generic questions. I'm like, oh God, that was not, I shouldn't swear. That was not so good.
Oh, listen, I mean, I've done that as a podcaster before. Like I show up unprepared and I'm like, okay, what's your thing? Is it an animal? Is it a vegetable? Is it a cloud service? Is it a SaaS tool?
Yeah.
Is it on-prem? Is it off-prem? Is it .NET? Is it Rust?
Please tell me you ask what if Amazon builds this?
Oh, definitely. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. Yeah. What if there's like Amazon Basics electric cars?
Yeah. Just to finish it up, say no to more things. And also too, it's so much more fruitful. It almost feels like romance, like I know like with a girl, if I meet her, there's like a spark, if I meet a founder, like he or she or they, and like I start the call and I'm like, hey, I've been looking in digital identity and infrastructure for a long time, and we need to solve this digital identity problem. And the problem is there isn't like a MuleSoft for identity. There needs to be a better like API integration for all these legacy identity systems, the LDAP, the ODAP. And here's how I think it should happen. And we can't ignore on-prem. that's specific, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to give an equivalent answer for like what a girl would be for me, because maybe I don't even know. But like, if you go and start that conversation, even if it doesn't perfectly match with the founder, the next conversation and the next several conversations will be so much more fruitful. And also, like, it's a reflection of passion. Like, you can't be passionate about every technical project in the world, like, and what is a little bit of a shame with larger firms, and by the way, like, I work with many of them and they're good partners downstream. You play a coverage game. If you're inside of a venture firm, like, my least favorite thing that I ever participated in was like a quarterly review of all the deals that got done by competitors, and then you just go back and be like, hey, like, why didn't we see this one? And then someone says like, oh, I saw it. I sent it to you, and then there's this weird like internal debate. It's just, so much of this is unproductive. It's positive sum. Positive sum is better. Find things you're really passionate about. And this is to the people you were describing earlier about people who want to become an angel investor. Just be specific and just be, and the word is overused, but really be authentic. Be authentic to what you want to like solve. Like, I want to solve more on digital privacy and security. I think there's like a constant tension between software build teams and cybersecurity teams. And like, what bite of the apple do you take? Do you take the data governance example, or do you do identity and access management? Do you try to shift left for code deployment stuff? Okay, if you do these things, like, what are the pros? What are the cons? There's like, that's a level of depth that I hope founders like meet, and I hope actually like I meet them too, to feel like a peer and not just a person on the quote unquote other side of the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to kind of have a conversation about what is changing at the enterprise. So one of the themes that has definitely emerged as I have been doing the show, this has always been a thing, but the whole build versus buy thing, and really just the recognition that, oh, this is another Warren Hoffmanism. So one of my favorite
Yeah.
Warren Hoffmanisms is, there was a time probably 3 or 4 years ago, he got involved in this business called Siftery. Have you heard of Siftery?
No.
So Siftery is a friend of mine, Ayan Barawa, runs. He co-founded this company, Siftery. The idea of Siftery was essentially, we're going to be the index of software tools and how they fit together. So you think
That's a cool idea.
like StackShare. So
Yeah,
you look at StackShare.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
StackShare, you can go to any company and see the tools that they use. That's the premise of StackShare. The premise of Siftery is sort of, you take that, but you turn it into more of an end by end sort of thing. What are all the products that the company Segment uses? What are all the companies that use Segment?
Oh, I have heard of this thing before.
Just like,
it's cool.
What's the entire fractal nature of vendors and how they relate to one another? Really big idea. They had this product, Siftery Track, that was kind of like QuickBooks for vendors. QuickBooks for vendor management. Not even QuickBooks for vendor management. It was more like, basically the idea of Siftery Track was, you link up your bank. I think it was, you link up your bank or your credit card. Very forward-looking idea, like kind of Plaid integration sort of thing. Integrate with Plaid, suck in all your transactions. We're going to tell you where you're spending money and where you could save money. Helps you with vendor negotiation, for example.
That's useful.
It's really useful. The ultimate idea is, you think of it as like, literally you go here to tell you where you should save money in your infrastructure. It's almost the ultimate cost management tool. So just brilliant idea. They ended up merging with G2 Crowd.
Yeah, good.
So like, very natural synergy. G2's growing like a weed, makes complete sense. But around this time, so Oren was involved. I think he became the chairman of Siftery. So he basically was, in between LiveRamp and SafeGraph. Warren Hoffman is saying, what can I do to like occupy my time because I'm so high energy? I'm gonna go be chairman. I'm gonna go be chairman of Siftery. And he starts writing about vendor management. Of all the things you could write about, he starts to write about vendor management. How do you manage vendors? How do you spend cost effectively? How do you select vendors? All these ideas where it's like, sort of like, if you think about vendor management, it's you're like a combination between a venture capitalist and someone at the beginning of their NBA season doing a draft. Or actually, does that analogy work? When does a draft? I don't watch sports.
Oh,
when does a draft happen?
What is it? Spring? I don't know.
Spring.
Maybe.
Okay, it's spring. You're drafting, except that happens all year. You're constantly drafting your vendors. You're constantly letting vendors go. There's change management. This whole field of vendor management is totally nascent. Nobody really talks about it. There's no catalog you can read. There's no strategy website you can read about vendor management.
Very, very ugly. Yeah.
super ugly. So when I hear you talking about all these different niches, I see some deals that you do sometimes, I'm like, that's a really niche deal. Like, obviously there's a need for that. Is the TAM there? And the answer is almost always yes. The
Yeah.
TAM is there. But I just wonder what your thoughts are on this. Essentially, like, there's the deluge of software. There's the deluge of new companies. Is there, like, is that like a circular, is that fine? Like, just the okay, so if you think about the deluge of these new deals, what's really going on here is there's a deluge of new companies. Is there enough capital to support these companies? Probably, because there's so much synergy and growth happening. Like, it seems like all of this is actually just an ever expanding market. Like, this is really actually what a industrial revolution sized situation going on in the world of software looks like. There's tons of new products. I want to adopt them all for my company. I can literally flip through. I run a podcast media business, and I can literally flip through creator economy tools all day and say like, yeah, I want that in my company. Yeah, I want that in my company. Yeah, I want that in my company. I could magnify my cogs by 10 and perhaps grow my business by 10, but I don't actually know. There's some, implementation issues, but it's all I'm trying to say is there's a sense of overwhelm that I have. This is probably going to be a theme in this conversation, but yeah, I don't even have a question here. I'm just, this is why I like talking to you.
And that's see where it goes. There's definitely enough capital to support. It really feels like it. And also too, even like 10 years ago, I remember like, when I like started in venture, maybe even 15 years ago, like the stuff that we did like software and e-commerce and apps. Now venture does like buy like properties and stuff and outfit it with this for this management company, or like I don't know, there's so much more heavier capex stuff, and it's so much bigger than it ever was before. There is an ever expanding TAM. The thing that I would say for software specifically, for founders, the thing that they need to the worry that they should have on the ever expanding, we see the deal flow. The deal flow is the stuff that founders compete with. It is, are they able and capable to have sufficient product marketing and product marketing management chops to get to the top of the list, so that when the budget conversation does happen at an enterprise or a user is starting to do it, like, you meet them at the right time? That's the difficulty. This is actually why I think Siftery and G2 Crowd are like useful products, because there's an overload. Like, it's a shopping marketplace. I mean, G2 Crowd with very qualified reviews, a shopping marketplace for software products. Man, that sounded niche, but think about like the lifetime value and the important implications that come from like buying software, which users, how to integrate. Oh, we're expanding internationally. Going back to your very, very first point, yeah, like it's rational, but it's rational towards leverage and towards operating leverage. That's what software enables people to do, and that's why everyone should be, not everyone. I think becoming a software developer, a software investor, being in this industry is like super like rewarding, fulfilling. You're like the builder of the future. And look, I have friends of mine that are really passionate, like artists and musicians. Like, not everyone needs to be a tech person, and I think there's a lot of that like Kool-Aid you drink in the Silicon Valley. But you guys just gotta come here. Like, this is amazing. But it is pretty incredible. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful that I started, and thanks to my mentor, the one who helped me, and the way that maybe I don't know if Warren's a mentor of yours, quote unquote, but someone who helped
distant mentor.
Yeah, but like someone who helped you significantly. Mood Regani, who founded Bond Capital with Mary Meeker, was at Kleiner before. Ooh. Yeah, he's great. He knew me when I was 16 years old. 16. When I had a faux hawk and I had Eurotrash t-shirts, and I was really just did not know what I was doing. And he helped me get my first internship. And look, at the time I was studying physics in university, and so I was going to do something. Wait,
you were in college when you were 16?
Oh, well, sorry, like. 18 is when I did my internship at General Catalyst, in which she helped me get.
Okay.
I'm not that.
How'd you find out about venture capital when you were like 16 or 18 or whatever?
Thank you to my older sister. So my older sister, a real like impressive person. I was going to use again more profanity. I would say bad something. She's an incredible person, and she went to Stanford after taking the company public. And Indian immigrant family we came in like the 80s. She was born there. My brother was born there. My parents were born there. Me and my sister were born in Chicago. She let me sit in on her Stanford GSB class, and I just sort of showed up and started asking questions. And I like met some of her classmates, and he just took an interest in me. And I think it's really, that is the thing, that pay it forward. You seem interesting. You seem cool. Like, why not like help someone get to where they want to be? Like, that's what I live for. And that's what I bleed for. That's why I do this job. like for founders, like I get to go and see them. And look, they might be not like, you know, cool kids, Stanford dropouts who like know everyone is every cool, like, you know, dinner party from this person or that VC or this operator. They might have came to this country and studied at Ben Gurion or Tsinghua University or IIT. They came when they're, you know, 35 years old and they have kids, and you know, they worked at a big company because that was the only place that would sort of have them and sponsor their green card. Like, actually 80% of the founders that I back, Jeff, actually are like, that are this profile. Like, they've had an exit either as a founder or as a founder, they're technical, or they were sort of engineering hire that's important. They're at a big company. They built something internally to solve a problem in a proprietary fashion. And they're definitely not like cool kid operators that like know the same people that some of us do. And it is my desire, it's my dream, it's my hope to make sure that even though they might not be able to like access those networks or say things the same way, if they're capable and if they're good at what they can do and they can solve problems, they deserve money. They're deserving of capital. And so I'm really happy with the founders that I back, and I'm going to do this for another 20, 30 years, maybe more.
Love what you just said there. Let's talk about pre-seed a little bit. I think pre-seed is basically the next frontier in venture investing. Agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Why? Why do you agree?
First, like, the people are just seeing revenue a lot earlier. And so I think it was Wing. Wing does this like cool research report every year, like state of venture. And they look at like post-revenue, pre-revenue, by years, seed A valuations, and like where it was before. Look, like seed companies have revenue and they used to not. It used to be around sort of like Series A, and like everything is shifting before. And just the cost to start a company, as like you know so well, and so do I know, it's just so much cheaper. And so you have to get there sooner and quicker. And the entry price, I mean, for a venture capitalist who's quantitative, the entry prices are really like interesting and exciting. I mean, we have opportunities to invest in companies at single digit millions or low double digit millions. And they can be $100 billion company in 10 years. Like, how crazy, how crazy is that? I love it. I mean, I focus on pre-seed. I'm the first check in maybe 60% of the portfolio companies.
One of the first checks into Supercompute.
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe you might have been. Were you the first check? I think. We talked about that?
Yeah, I think I was the second one.
You were the second. First is Haseeb Qureshi.
Yeah. I'm very happy about it too,
dude.
It's gonna be amazing.
You haven't met Haseeb yet?
No, I want to.
Haseeb's the best crypto investor.
The best?
I'm saying it on air right now. Haseeb's the best crypto investor.
Really?
The gauntlet has been dropped down.
Oh,
yes,
my God.
100%.
Very
He's
cool.
The best.
Small little plug to Max Mersch, who I think is one of the best. But,
really?
But I know Haseeb. Yeah, Max Mersch, I hired him. He has a firm called Fabric Ventures, and has just done so well. And I'll say like a lot of Web 3.0 stuff. Axie Affinity, So Rare is a crazy company. And there's so many more. But ooh, cool.
Dude, I tried to mint my first NFT a couple days ago.
Oh, yeah?
It's a nightmare.
It's hard?
It was hard. I couldn't figure out how to do it.
I
literally got blocked and gave up. I actually messaged my friend who works at one of the NFT minting companies. I said, "Can you walk me through this?" Like, I felt like when my mom calls me and asks me to like set up iTunes for her, and I'm like, "Oh God, iTunes again." I'm literally asking my friend to help me set up the NFT.
That's funny.
I guess the generational divide is quite clear there. Like, that's going to be the thing that like I'm very confused about when interacting with my kids is crypto.
I have not tried to mint an NFT or buy.
If you do an NFT selfie, I'll buy it. I'll buy it for an ETH.
Oh, good. Really? I'd be so honored.
Maybe not an ETH. That's a little much. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Some
do
fraction.
something a little more creative, and I'll buy it for an ETH.
All right.
A little more creative.
I used
creativity.
I used to draw. I can.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit. Sketching. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Draw something cool.
All right. I will do.
NFTs. Can we talk about NFTs a little bit?
Yeah, of course we can.
So NFTs, basically a level up from proof of authority. So proof of authority, let's say we have a digital version of Etsy. That digital version of like completely digital Etsy where you can sell
You know what's cool?
artsy.
Isn't it awesome that we think of Etsy as like non-digital?
Yeah.
because we're just getting started.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's say artsy. Like artsy's a better example. So like digital artsy. Let's say you can just maybe artsy already has this, but like let's say artsy where you can buy a JPEG, and basically you say artsy mediates the sales of JPEGs on its platform. When you buy, this is pre-NFT, you buy a JPEG. Farooq Abbasi draws a picture of himself. I buy it.
Typical.
I buy it for $10 on Artsy, and Artsy says, okay, Jeff Meyerson owns the rights to Farooq Abbasi's sketch of himself. I paid $10 for it. They have a centralized managed database where they're telling where they can say who owns what piece of digital art from Artsy. Okay, so you introduce the concept of NFT, and you basically say, okay, we're basically saying instead of Artsy being the authority that rules over who has paid $10 for a selfie sketch of Farooq Abbasi, you're going from Artsy to a blockchain. And apparently by doing that, the potential price is magnified considerably, just because we have gone from a centralized authority to a decentralized authority. Do you think this is a rational decision that the market has made? Or do you think it's irrational and it's eventually going to correct, and NFTs, like the concept of an NFT, is not going to inflate the price of art at all?
Really good question. So the shift just going to blockchain infrastructure in itself should not magnify the price of like an asset. What is nice about these things is that you can capture yield in like many interesting ways. I mean, I'm a personal investor in a company called SoRare. So SoRare will basically NFT trading cards for football teams, soccer teams. And like if NBA Top Shot's sort of like the US leader for basketball and football and baseball, they'll do soccer and cricket and F1 and these types of things. There is a really healthy, strong economy around like the usage of these NFTs in a game. So it's actually a fantasy card game. And so I think there's more opportunities for transactions like in between sales. So if you think about just art traditionally in like Christie's, like you can go show it at some museum or show it at some house and like get something, but this is just so much faster and it can show up in a lot of places. And the form factors are going to be better too. Like think about like the future, like art frame, right? You'll be able to have like the Mona Lisa and the NFT in your home for X number of days, and you're the only one in the world. Like these types of things do they appeal to me on a personal deep level? Maybe not, but I can see the value that people can like. So blockchain, I always believe that blockchain infrastructure, one of the larger good use cases would have been because of the network speed being so slow, high average order value, low transaction speed stuff,
right?
Like real estate or artwork. Now, the transaction speed is getting a little bit better with things like Lightning and all these other projects, but it's an interesting market, and admittedly, it's not one that I spend a lot of time like investing in on like institutionally. But it's definitely something I've deep interest in.
Do you do fintech at all?
Oh yeah. So Remitly is a company that'll which will go public. Yeah, we'll go public hopefully pretty soon. I did the Series B in that one, and then Auto One, which is now public. It's at 10 billion. Was kind of a fintech company. It's like a European CarMax. And then Truebill was probably the most was another seed one I did, and Lively.
We talked about Truebill.
Yeah, it's actually short answer is yes. I love fintech. I think it's super important. And Can
you just explain what Truebill is? Like both to give a shout out to your company and to explain a very cool product.
Oh yeah, happily. So one of my favorite business models in the world is like free for user, charge the vendors. So kind of like Credit Karma. So what Truebill does will go in a plaid type way, go through your bank accounts and analyze and see what are recurring purchases. Like I would get really pissed off when I would see like, what did I subscribe to? Some like idiotic magazine, or why did this price increase? It'll notify those things. But for things like utility bills that you might have, say you're a Comcast subscriber or a T-Mobile subscriber, like you're a whale, right? Like if they keep you, Jeff, as like a Comcast customer for a long time, you're worth like, maybe in your life, like, I don't know, 100 grand. Not so bad, right? What Truebill will do will automatically renegotiate those utility bill accounts, and will give you and let you know like, hey, you could be saving money on this, and will be as sort of a middleman person to negotiate that on a group basis for the users. And actually even the vendors get a little happy, because think about like you might move from, I don't know, like Yerba Buena to Harrison Street or something. That's an opportunity for churn. And so if Truebill is the intermediary and keeps you on the Comcast chain for a while, like Comcast is happy. So yeah, I'm really happy they closed. I guess it's technically a Series C at like a 500-ish million plus valuation. Really capital efficient business, only like 20 or 30 people. And what's fun is actually it's one of the first companies that I've backed that like people really know about it. Like they're like, oh, I love Truebill. I'm like, great, very very cool. And good founding team. Three Iranian guys. They all had separate like successes. One was VP of Nanigans, which is like a performance marketing business, and the other two are co-founders of Webs.com. So Harun and Yahia, and I'm forgetting the other brother's name, but it was fun. I actually met them in Austria randomly at a conference when I was living in Europe. And I always wanted to invest in this type of business. And that was the thing. I gave my point of view about all the other subscription management companies and the opportunities for monetization. And it didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like we were like falling in love, like, okay, cool. Like I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I hope I can interview them. I hope I can interview them in some point. We should make that happen.
Oh, definitely.
I'd really like to talk to them because I have all these implementation questions about it. But coming back to pre-seed. Okay, so pre-seed. So I think I told you a little bit about Ondeck, my experience with Ondeck. So Ondeck was really cool. You know Ondeck? You know
Yeah,
Ondeck?
yeah. I was an Ondeck. I was part of the first angel fellowship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have to pay for that one?
Yes, it was. And then they were nice. They give scholarships and stuff and free. But I was happy.
What do you pay for it? What does it cost?
I believe I don't know. Hopefully it's public, but I don't mind saying it. Sorry, Eric.
Put a
it was $5,000. I remember.
So $5,000. So $5,000. How many people were in with the
maybe
cohort?
20 or 30, and like really impressive people like Justin Kahn, Josh Ullman from Greylock.
Wow.
Yeah, like good crew people.
Interesting. So like a Justin Kahn paid $5,000.
I'm not sure if he paid, but like he showed up.
Was in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we'd have cool like little like kind of group sessions and chats.
What I love about that business is I want to know more about how it actually works. But I think about like so they spin up all these Ondecks, right? Like they spin up Ondeck Venture, right? And it's like,
oh, for sure. I almost even honestly I even giggle a little bit when I get these emails like Ondeck design this, that, whatever, or like Ondeck whatever. I'm like, oh my god, like there's like factions for every kind of person. It's amazing.
But I think they're doing it right. I think actually their model is so pioneering and they're so far ahead of anything else that's anything remotely like, except maybe Reforge. I don't know much about Reforge. But Reforge is like the only major competitor technically, right? Or
yeah,
like maybe YC.
And I feel like it's more oriented towards like I guess growth marketing for Reforge.
So like if you think of
Brian Belfour thing, yeah.
If you think of Ondeck as a category, what else is in that category? Is there anything?
God. Okay, you know what? Maybe it would be YPO, Young Presence or sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like maybe that.
Right.
No, but not in the same way that's like educational, distributed. Catching people at the right time, putting people in touch with one another. I'm happy it exists. I know people have like different points of view on it. Like I'm really happy that it exists, and I made a couple of new friends during Ondeck Angels.
Right. So for me, my Ondeck Miami experience was totally transformative. That was like, you saw me during the pandemic. I was having a really hard time. I went to Ondeck Miami. It was awesome. It was like literally awesome. Very, very useful. Kind of an inflection point for my life. Very, very valuable.
Yeah, and now you eat like Cubano sandwiches all the time, and
totally, yes, it's basically
you have a Miami kind of Spanish accent.
Absolutely. So I went through a genetic alteration that some Miami folks go through. It's experimental. It's like a combination of the the blood. What is it? Blood baby. What's the thing where you get the blood transfusion? So it's like combination blood boy. It's a blood boy program together.
Blood baby is pretty extreme.
Yeah, that's disgusting. So it's like a blood boy based approach. There's a little cryogenic routine they pull on you, and that's what Ondeck Miami is basically. In Wynwood, it takes place in Wynwood at a co-working space. The cryogenics is closer to the beach. The thing is, like, this is the pre-seed. So the pre-seed thing is, you have Ondeck and then your Village Global, and Village Global serves as this big filter potential. I mean, this is what I imagine this thing becoming, is essentially like you have Ondeck here, and then you have Village Global here, and then what Village Global is, right? Okay,
yeah,
and then gradually the two things become closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, and then until you basically have like essentially like a venture capital stack attached to the pre-venture. Like you basically have a venture capital stack attached to a university. And so basically, like at literally all areas of the ideation to mature company life cycle, Ondeck / Village Global has something to offer you. That's what I find really interesting about where they're headed with that.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like they are going to have basically the first grabs at industrialized pre-seed. If anybody else can do industrialized pre-seed, I'd love to know. But like pre-seed at industrialized scale, who else can do that? Kind of Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a little too exclusive at this point.
You know, it was an interesting example that's doing it in a institutionalized way is Entrepreneur First. So I was actually indirectly an investor in this company via a former fund. Do you know of EF? Have you heard of EF before?
Actually, I think I have seen that acronym.
So they're based in London, but they have cohorts in Germany and London, Singapore, all over the place. You go there as an individual, and you don't even have to have a company or an idea, but you say, I just want to be an entrepreneur. They match you up with a founder. They will give you cash and accelerate you, but like it is like it's truly like talent investing. And what I'm happy about is like some of the I think some people viewed that model of like, wow, like you just show up, like don't even have an idea, you don't even know who your co-founder is, like this is not going to work. They had some really interesting kind of like acqui-hire-ish type companies initially, but Tractable, Accurex. Tractable is a $1 billion company now. Does like applied computer vision for like automotive car repairs. What was it? Accurex is like kind of a GP healthcare communications company. So that's the only alternative. That's the only other one that I can think of, which is interesting and different and pure play talent investing. I guess maybe First Round's trying to do things like this too with their community and customer discovery introductions early on. Me and Brett Person talk about this sometimes. Really good guy, but it's still the market's so big. Like we talk about the software market so big, the venture market's still so big. There's so much more to do. Because honestly, think about your friends who are like in pre-seed land and that they want to start a company. Do you think they have like all the resources they need to like be successful and happy, or do they still have questions? Even with all the blogs and all of the people and all of the VCs out there, like it's still imperfect.
All the people, are you talking about the people who are raising pre-seed?
Founders
who are raising pre-seed.
No.
Yeah.
But they still don't know.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah. What I wonder is like, where does this lead? So what is the minimum screening criteria? Here's what I find interesting. There's all these really good business ideas that basically, if you found a credible founder with business idea X, it would take like $2,500 in startup capital for the founder to validate that idea. And if you are the person to give them $2,500, you're definitely going to be the first person they go to when they're looking for $10,000 or when they're looking for $1 million. Nobody's offering the $2,500 check, right? Who's offering the $2,500 first check? I mean, that's friends and family right now, which is fine. But ideally, It's like Ondeck has like the $2,500 coupon thing that you can redeem if you've got a good startup idea at the end of Ondeck.
That's a great idea. You should mention it to them. Does this exist?
The $2,500 coupon?
Yeah. You say coupon, so it makes me think that it doesn't exist because there has to be a better term for this. I don't think it exists.
I just like the idea of like
I'm going to cash in my founder's coupon, please.
Yeah, founder's coupon. It's like I don't know if it exists yet.
So your question was around like what's the minimum diligence? I guess diligence, or how does?
I don't know what the question is. Like what I'm observing is like one of the most glaring market inefficiencies that remains.
Yeah.
As things get competed away.
So I can tell you, I firmly agree with you. I can tell you that, so with Preface, we have 100% distributed sourcing. And so I have unpartners who are LPs who are also investors, which we catch up with quarterly, who we help on stuff. And then one point, which I think you'll like, or at least be interested in, I built an algorithmic sourcing engine called Klarman as an ode to Seth Klarman, the value investor.
Margin of safety.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my man. Exactly. So we track about 10,000 people right now and various like online behaviors and personal attributes and who they are. And there's some fun so it doesn't make the decision for me, but it actually scores people based on some characteristics that predispose people to entrepreneurial successes. I've highlighted some of this before, but like if you come from Oracle has more billion-dollar companies that are built from their alumni than any other place, which is pretty amazing. If you're a VP if you created some value as a founder, a 5-figure or 6-figure exit, 50 to 150 million bucks, you're like 2 or 3 times more likely to build the $1 billion company next time, versus someone who is a first-time founder on average. By the way, I'll highlight these are all on average, or someone who's built a $1 billion company then because maybe they had too much comfort and now they're too successful. What was their title? Did they get promoted when they were acquired by the firm in their current sort of situation? Did they stay there for a year and get pissed off and leave, or did he or she stay there for 7 or 8 years and then continue and get promoted? All these things are sort of predisposed features for like ML features for entrepreneurial successes. I gave you like 6 or 7. There's about 45 of them. And again, it doesn't make the decision, but if you know what you're looking for, that at least helps start the conversation. And then like, what does that conversation look like? It's more of like a technical roadmap product discussion. Then it's a little bit of like, in my opinion, like interviewing people for characteristics that are critical, like grit, self-awareness, resourcefulness, kindness and compassion too. Not everyone needs to be like a angry entrepreneur, right? And yeah, like for us in our diligence process, we'll often introduce 2 or 3 different kind of customer prospects in the meantime. But I'll even just being intellectually honest, it's hard to do that in today's age too, where like the time horizons for making a venture capital decision are much, much shorter. And so I probably spend more time one-on-one with the founder in a series of like, I'll talk to them on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Friday. And then probably by like Saturday or Sunday, I'll like kind of know, and then I'll want to invest.
Can I share an experiment that I ran
Let's hear it.
years ago? Okay, so I ran this experiment. So 2.5 years ago, I'm running Software Engineering Daily. Podcast ad sales are doing really well. I'm trying to spin up this company, Find Collabs. My idea was like the Quora for projects. Like, don't worry about it. It was a cool idea. We don't need to talk about that now. But at the same time, I was starting to get into investing a little bit more, starting to make some personal investments. And I interviewed this guy about the subject of cryptojacking. Do you know cryptojacking? Have you ever heard that term?
Yeah, you basically take compute resources and do mining. Yeah.
Yeah. So like imagine you have a rogue Chrome extension, and the Chrome extension is mining Bitcoin in your browser.
This is one of I was a first investor in Redlock, which Palo Alto Networks bought for $200 million. This is one of their first use cases.
Okay.
It happens. Perfect. It happened on the corporate level.
Dude, it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Basically, every place you have a spare compute cycle, somebody's trying to cryptojack it from you. Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, so there was this guy who wrote a blog post about cryptojacking. He was from South America, some young kid. He was like 17 or 18 and maybe even 16. He was very young. So he wrote this blog post about cryptojacking. I brought him on for an interview and he was just very sharp. And immediately after the interview, I said, look, I don't care what you're building. I want to invest in it. I think this is really interesting. You're clearly very cool. You're very knowledgeable about cryptojacking. This seems like a nascent area. Do you want to build a product in this space? And he's like, yeah, I already am building a product. He starts working on cryptojacking. And I said, okay, how much? Like, I don't have very much money. Like, what's the minimum I can invest? Can I put in $5,000 or $2,500? And and he said, yeah, well, let's do like 6,250. For some reason, he said 6,250. Okay, sure, 6,250. Wire it straight to your bank account. He starts sending me investor updates. I think I was the only investor in this situation. No. He was also an accelerator. So he's going through the process. And by the way, this is not at all critical of anything that he did because he managed his money and managed his experience as an entrepreneur certainly no worse than I have. But throughout that process, he pivoted from cryptojacking to marketing tools. And then from marketing tools back to something in crypto. And then from crypto back to something in marketing tools. And he went back and forth and back and forth. And I very quickly realized, okay, if you're trying to do pre-seed, this is going to be a common failure mode where basically you have somebody who pivots into oblivion. They don't feel enough conviction about their idea, or they're like kind of early, because like an entrepreneur, every entrepreneur goes through a different journey. Is your first idea the thing that you're going to work on for the rest of your life? For some entrepreneurs, it absolutely is. Yeah. They know their mission. They know what God endowed them with to build. But other people are just like, yeah, I'm in it for the money, or I'm in it for the fun, or I'm in it for the hustle, and I'm just looking for my idea, and I'm pivoting from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. Yeah. All I'm really looking for is that operational, smoothness where I can recruit a team and raise money and things are going to go well, and then I'm going to exit and then I'm going to go do my next thing. That's fine. Those are different sides of a spectrum. And I think this guy kind of hadn't really figured out what his startup ideation bake the pie in the oven framing was. And so he pivoted into oblivion. But that said, I would bet on him again in a heartbeat. If he came to me and said, I've got a new idea, I would say, that's great. I've got some more capital. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know.
I think I know what you're getting to. There has to be some like we still operate in like a profit driven, like you have to keep the lights on, right? For the endowments, for the nonprofits, for the LPs, to the GPs who need to pay their salaries and so forth. But there's probably some like mathematical function that like works where there's a small enough amount of money, which is almost like part educational or part like just like purely risk driven, where
it's like a grant.
Yeah, it's a grant.
It's an entrepreneurship grant.
Totally, it's an entrepreneurship grant, and like it'd be pretty amazing if universities had this as a.
Oh my god, like, that would be a godsend.
Yeah, and I guess in Europe, people are a little bit more flexible with this, but in the U.S., like not so much. I mean, I think if like how many friends of yours in college, just like stopped and came back with the support of their school. Like halted for a little bit. Yeah, and then came back. Halted being a student.
Dude, and I did that.
Well, okay, you did that. How many people are like you?
I mean, probably, I don't know, a fourth of the people I know or the fifth of the people I know. Like
that's awesome. You're around the right people then.
Dude, college is a great place to have some kind of existential crisis or health crisis or whatever, and like stop out for a little bit and go through that experience, and like. Yeah, tons of people go through that.
Yeah, for me, my experience would be like less so. Like I don't know that many people where like in their university, the dean would be like, "Oh, great! Like you want to just like stop and work at like some company for a year? Like sounds good. Like we'll be here when you get back."
Oh, you're talking about working at a company for a little bit.
Yeah, or like something along those lines.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like that doesn't happen nearly as much.
Apprenticeship or trade school kind of that's what Waterloo does, right?
Yeah, Waterloo does that.
Waterloo systematizes that,
and European schools do it, and I think it's a really, really, really good thing. Something like what I'm doing with Preface is like there's a version of this where I'll go and give $500,000 for someone who had built something internally at a big company that's in the thesis area that I care about and like I'm passionate about, and to say like, hey, like leave your job, I will be with you. We haven't done that just yet, but like there's one or two folks right now, which actually arguably, yeah, it's happening like as we speak. You know, you're like I want to break you out of jail. Like that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I want to break these people out of jail to enable them to like build for themselves and like they'll surprise themselves and they'll surprise others, because it's so crazy. Sometimes you don't even know how good you are or how good.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you just have to put yourself in the right environment, right? Yeah, founders get in touch. People can believe in you. You know, people can believe in you if you just find the right match.
So that's actually, I think, probably the thing that attracted me. So I started listening to This Week in Startups, the Jason Calacanis program in college. And this was a senior year. So it's senior year of college. I have no idea what venture capital is. I know nothing about private investing. I was just looking for what podcasts are available. I found Seth Godin's Startup School, and I found This Week in Startups.
Wow, good for you.
Did you ever listen to Seth Godin's?
I listened to This Week in Startups. I did not listen to Seth Godin's one.
Okay.
No, but like how many years ago was this?
This was in college, senior year. I'm totally floundering. I'm barely passing my classes. I'm extremely depressed. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. You know, I'm like about to go work at a corporate job. I don't really want to work at a corporate job. I'm like wondering what has gone wrong with my life to go into this trajectory.
Oh man.
And I found This Week in Startups. I found Seth Godin's Startup School, and it was kind of the first glimmer of like, oh, there's actually a viable creative reality out there for me that I would want to engage in.
Viable creative reality. I like that.
Which was amazing because, you know, I was in one of the top 10 computer science schools in the United States, but I hadn't really been exposed to the concept of entrepreneurship or even really creativity as applied to computer science. Really, my only notions of computer science were this is an art that is used to serve your corporate masters.
What do you think is missing? So when you were in that situation, and I hear you like you found some resources via podcast, but like, what do you wish you had more of?
Did you like college?
Yeah, like is there something like
encouragement? This is like one of the bigger problems with the United States is we basically have like an epidemic of apathy or cynicism.
Yeah.
Where it's and I've fallen victim to this, of course. Like certainly during the pandemic, I kind of was afflicted by a deep, deep sense of cynicism and pessimism. And I understand that basically you get trapped in mental loops sometimes that put you in a pessimistic nature. And that's a fundamental problem of human nature. and it's something we have to solve at a societal level, and by a societal or cultural or anthropological level, where you say,
Yeah.
look, it is one of the jobs of the groups of people that we are within to lift up people who have been sort of trapped into some sort of negative mental loop, because ultimately that's all it is. It's a negative mental loop, and we can help release you from it if we give you the right, whatever, neurolinguistic programming or something, right? Like, that's what I find so interesting about podcasts is you're choosing your neurolinguistic programming, basically.
Nice. I get you now.
Right?
I get you even
like,
more.
That's podcasting to me, is passive neurolinguistic programming.
And you get to choose who you, I mean, more or less.
You get to choose. Like,
this is why an entrepreneurship's awesome like this too, right? Because you get to choose who to work with. Like, it's amazing. Like, you never need to, you can be and build and create like your ride or die army of people with you forever. And it's your choice.
Man, that's you.
Yeah. Likewise, man. Likewise. Totally. And I'm pumped too. I can't wait.
So how good is it that, this is putting things very bluntly, but how good is it that we're in a business where we can essentially make economic arrangements that keep each other's best interests in mind? So like back when I played poker, I used to play poker very seriously.
I learned that recently, and I look forward to, but I'm also scared when we play Hold'em together.
We'll have to do it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna act very chaotically.
Well, no, you're an investor, dude. You're an investor in Supercompute. We're gonna play Supercompute together.
Sounds good. Can't wait.
Poker's a thing of the past. Supercompute's where it's at. So we'll play Supercompute in our own casinos.
That'll be very cool.
Which will be airships. So we'll be flying around playing in our casinos.
Sounds like the future of the future of the future.
Yeah. So but back when I played poker, so there's this thing in poker. So poker's like super hyper individualistic, right? You're literally, there's no team poker. I mean, there's been televised team poker. It's ridiculous, but it's not a real thing.
How so? I mean,
it does not even go into it.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Just dumb.
I'm trying to think through it. Yeah, it sounds
crazy. But basically, the way that you form teams in poker is through staking systems. I mean, people stake each other. There's also training sites. Training sites create a loose affiliation, but you stake each other. I say, look, let's swap 30%. Farooq, I think you're a great tournament player. I'm a great tournament player. Tournaments are high variance. We're firing a 25K bullet.
We play differently.
We play differently. It's kind of a hedge. In that notion. And you have somebody to root for, right? Yeah. So like, that's what I love about venture. At least like, that's what I love about venture at the level that we're at, where we're basically, okay, look, and I don't even mean like level, like we've leveled up. I just mean we've been in the industry long enough to have a little bit of a proven track record. Yeah. We can say to each other, like, Farooq, I promise you that when I have the capital, actually I'm at the point now, I would love to be an LP. Like as soon as I can be an LP, I'll be an LP. Yeah. And you can say, I'm going to invest in your company. And then we're like, high five, let's go to dinner and root for each other. Yeah. Which, like, how many places in life,
in our economy,
in your economy, can you genuinely know somebody's rooting for you?
Yeah. That's
like your parents, kind of, your friends from childhood, and who else? Like, that's really it. It's a Shark Tank. Yeah. Yeah, man, we're so lucky. You're making me feel really, really grateful. We're in an excellent place. And what's good too is like the upside of these things are so, if you're purely economic and rational, the upside of these things are so big. But it depends how you quantify what is upside. Like, I actually love learning. Like, I can't wait to like learn more about like this industry, your sub industry, like your type of product and solution and the problems that you're going to have and how you're going to communicate. And I'll learn more about you too, like how you're going to communicate, like on, issues, concerns that you have, things that you can, push through, things you'll need help with. It's like fast. It's like one of the most like fun and fascinating parts of like the human condition is like putting yourself through a challenge. And I love it. Do you want to know like how much I love this type of like individual sort of hero or heroine story? Tell me about it.
The movie that I watch when I'm sad.
Ooh.
When I want to get inspired.
Let me think about it.
When I want an inspiration.
Not Great Gatsby.
Not Great Gatsby.
Let me think. Inspiration. The Founder?
No. That's a good answer. The Revenant.
What's The Revenant? I haven't seen that.
Oh, with Leonardo DiCaprio, it's excellent.
Is that a vampire movie?
No.
Oh no, that's the one where he's like he has to fight a bear, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to fight the bear, but he definitely fights.
He's in some Arctic scenario.
Yeah,
he gets left for dead.
And this is based on
he fights his way back.
And
I gotta watch this.
Based on a true story.
Oh my god, I gotta watch this. Okay, that's the first thing I'm writing down.
Oh, it's excellent. It's such a good movie. It's based on a true story. A guy basically like literally crawled after being mauled by a bear.
So it's based on true story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like hundreds of miles,
Right.
and and got like revenge and retribution.
Right.
And the revenant, like the word literally means like someone who's like risen from the dead. But like I love like, and most people when I say that, they're like, you're weird. Like you're weird.
No,
like,
I get it.
Because it's like the human experience. Like that's why we're here, and that's why I want to be in service of. Like, it makes me happy. It fills me up with joy.
Listen, man, I went broke twice. I went broke playing poker once. I went broke doing Adverprise once. Adverprise was my first software business.
Yeah, you told me
really
about that
bad
recently.
business. I've been broke twice. You come back from that, and then COVID also. COVID was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like upper middle class human being, so I've had every cushion in the world, and I still feel kind of like that revenant guy. So I know that there's all these people in the world that basically, if they get, KO'd, they don't really have a cushion.
Yeah.
So that's how you know there's still a lot of alpha waiting to be created that we can help create by cushioning these sorts of people.
Definitely, for like institutionalizing pre-seed and just making like risk-seeking behavior like safe. Normative, yeah. I love risk. Risk is the best.
I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Dynatrace. Dynatrace's software intelligent platform delivers automatic and intelligent observability to simplify cloud complexity and accelerate digital transformation. So if you're a developer, a DevOps engineer, or an SRE under pressure to develop code and release faster, or if you're spending hours dealing with outages due to buggy software, or if you're just getting bogged down doing manual testing and validation, check out Dynatrace Cloud Automation, the recently announced module of the Dynatrace platform. Dynatrace Cloud Automation helps increase collaboration between dev and production teams around a single source of truth. It accelerates delivery pipelines with the automated orchestration of CI/CD and remediation workflows, and it ensures risk-free releases by evaluating quality gates and service-level objectives earlier in the lifecycle. See why Dynatrace is radically different and try it free for 15 days at dynatrace.com/se-daily. That's dynatrace.com/se-daily. TeamCity Cloud is a new continuous integration service that is hosted by JetBrains. Last year, we invited listeners of Software Engineering Daily to take part in the TeamCity Cloud beta. Now, the service is officially released and ready to be used in production environments. TeamCity Cloud is based on the original on-premise version of TeamCity. It's the same great CI/CD, but managed by JetBrains. The best thing about TeamCity Cloud is that it doesn't tie you to any particular technology or workflow. It integrates with all popular version control systems, build and test frameworks, issue trackers, IDEs, cloud providers, and it supports them all equally well. And you don't have to deal with updating your tools or installing security patches. That's all done by JetBrains. TeamCity Cloud lets you run your pipelines on cloud agents provided by JetBrains or connect build agents from your own network. To get started, go to teamcity.com, create an account, and get 20 hours of build time for free. Once again, that's teamcity.com. And as a bonus, if you want a personal introduction to TeamCity Cloud, just use the Contact Us form at teamcity.com and write that you came from Software Engineering Daily, and the guys from JetBrains will get in touch with you and help you through your CI/CD path for free. Thanks for listening, and thanks to TeamCity Cloud for being a sponsor of Software Engineering Daily. Were you born in India?
No, I was born in Chicago.
Okay, you're born in Chicago.
Yeah, me and my sister were born in Chicago, and then the other 4 parents and other 2 siblings were born in India.
Okay. India is still risk averse, right? Culturally? Is that changing?
It's changing a lot more now, but man, there is a huge association with like where you went to school, you went to like the IITs, or like what job you have, and so in some ways it's such a beautiful culture, and I'm so happy that I'm Indian, but it's a little bit materialistic in the old school way. Yeah, I even saw Germany was like this too, sort of pre-rocket internet. It's like, okay, you went to like WHU or TUM, Technical University of Munich, and then you went to McKinsey, and then afterwards, like, what happens next? Like hedge fund or this, that, whatever. Now and then, rocket internet came in, and in some ways, actually, maybe that's an example of someone who maybe imperfectly, but in Zalando exists and all these other like really impressive companies exist because they take all these smart people and they gave them risk, like a safe space to operate and to be risky and to start creating companies. India's in a similar situation. I would say now what's nice though is you have kind of the classic base level companies like Paytm and
Gojek.
Gojek, and I guess I don't know how Ola Cabs is doing.
And what's a cart or whatever?
Flipkart. Flipkart. Yeah. So I mean, like that's happening, and like now, what's nice is like they're just I have such a strong bias. It's one of my bad biases. There's a strong bias towards Indian people. I think that entrepreneurial ecosystem is going to explode and continues to explode.
For sure.
Such good people and like humble and
Yes.
hardworking and like very English speaking.
Oh man, let's do Strengths Finder for different nationalities. Okay, so we got so what's Strengths Finder?
By the way, this could get very dangerous very fast.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do this. Hyper stereotypical.
This is a really bad idea. This is a terrible idea. You're right. Okay, thank you for saving me. All right, cancellation one, like evaded. Needless to say, I love immigrants. Like I love hanging out with immigrants. I feel like my ancestors were immigrants. We were just like the first. We happened to be like earlier to the trip. Yeah. And I'm sort of like, all right, other immigrants are coming ashore. I'm like pulling them ashore. I'm like, hey, come ashore. Like, do you need anything? Like, do you need resources? Do you need to help build you your house? Like, I'm here for you. We're building this thing together. Like, we're building this America thing together.
Yep.
I'm starting to get that sense. Like, I'm starting to get the whole notion of being prideful about America and like what's special about America.
And I like that you say that, prideful about America, which is inclusive of people who are on the outside of it. Because there is a faction that it does exist in the United States where there's some anti-immigrant sentiment. I mean, man, just even most recently, the thing that like kind of scared me and worried me. I have plenty of Asian American friends. San Francisco, man, like I saw these like these videos on Twitter and stuff where just people are just like beating people.
That stuff's crazy.
Yeah.
That was partially COVID insanity though. That's I thought that got overblown. That's COVID insanity.
Yeah. And I mean, terrible, and hopefully like it's resolved, and hopefully Jay Sabuddin does a better job. He's a weird dude.
Why is he? Because he's like an anti-meme. He's like you show you're part of this, like you show you're part of like the Legion of Silicon Valley 4.0 by saying you don't like Jay Sabuddin.
Yeah, what's
the ultimate signal?
What's the very famous podcast?
All In.
Yeah, All In.
The best podcast.
I love it so much. By the way.
So by the way, this week I'm like literally slacking, or last week I was slacking my the team of software engineering daily. I was literally saying, we have a hair on fire situation. There's going to be an all-in of software. Like there will be an all-in of software.
Oh, cool.
If there hasn't already been one, there will be one. Like I mean, this is literally like something that's consuming me, because like
that's a great idea.
What are the existential threats to software engineering daily? Like definitely one of them is all in for software just eating my lunch.
Yeah, fine.
Which is part of why I'm like having you on here and like wearing an outrageous costume, because I'm like, what can I do to compete with All In? Like I basically try to be more outrageous than them.
What is, well, I wish I was just thinking like there could be like an all-star cast that gets assembled of like people that are equivalents.
So I bought alloutpodcast.com.
Oh, really?
So I might do the All Out podcast.
You're so forward thinking. That's why you're going to be a good entrepreneur.
Do you want to do it?
You're a good entrepreneur.
Do you want to do it? You could do it.
You
should do it.
I'll jump down this. I'll go down this rabbit hole with you.
That's a verbal agreement.
No, but actually, what would the equivalent be? Like Friedberg, like maybe like some guy from like the Berkeley Rise lab who's like the academic professor.
Jan Stoika. It's like Jan Stoika. Who else is on the All Out podcast?
Who would be the sax equivalent of like the
Martin Casado?
Oh yeah, he's great. Or
Mike Volpe. It's Mike Volpe, Martin Casado, Jan Stoica,
No,
and
you definitely need to have you need to have one like pure play open source person, which is why I think Volpe would be a good choice. Definitely.
or JJ. Have you met JJ?
Oh, I have. Yeah, from OSS Fund.
Capital.
Yeah. That could be a good one too. And then what's Chamath's equivalent?
I mean, JJ. I hate to say JJ, but JJ might be the Chamath. JJ, he's a good friend. Shout out to JJ, like one of my favorite investors. Invested in my companies. JJ might be the Chamath. Friedberg is the who? Friedberg is
someone from academic professor, pure play.
Oh, right. Friedberg is Jan Stoica. Wait, but who's Jason Calacanis?
It could be you.
Maybe. Or Harry Stebbings.
Oh,
no,
sure.
not Harry Stebbings. He's not really infra guy.
Yeah,
right?
and he's pretty.
So who's the infra? Oh, data engineering guy, maybe. Data engineering podcast guy, Tobias Macy, maybe.
Oh, sure, that could work. Yeah, I got
it. Anyway, I mean, I want to see this, right? So this is the thing. I've been talking to like my podcaster friends. I'm like I'm trying to tell everybody. I'm like I feel like Chicken Little, literally.
Yeah.
I'm running around. I'm like, listen, the 2-person interview. I was telling Eric Torenberg this. He's not listening to me. He's like, or he was listening to me. But I was telling him we got to do something about this. Like literally, look, you guys, I don't know if you got the memo. The 2-person podcast is dead. It's dead. Like in its current form, it's dead. The Joe Rogan experience like is a thing of the past now. The all-in format has proven. It's not that the all-in format has proven that like 4-person roundtable, like kind of like non-format. Or non-directional, like sort of like, you know, we're going to explore what as we go along. It's not that format is the new end all be all. It's what they have shown is that there is an entire panoply of formats that are available. Like, because in the past, like basically for all of podcasting, it's kind of been like roughly 2 sorts of things. You either have 2-person interview format, or you have some sort of highly produced thing. Like the highly produced thing is like the NPR or Wait, Don't Tell Me or The Moth or This American Life or startup podcasts. Like all these things are sort of highly produced. You have the highly produced thing, and then you have like the 2-person interview thing, and then you kind of have like the panel sort of thing, like the H3 podcast. But really what the All In podcast showed is that actually there's a whole suite of other directions. Like the thing that I was thinking about is like, you know, Jay and Silent Bob?
Yeah, of course.
So like imagine if we were doing this podcast and like Silent Bob was also here. So it's like once during the podcast, Silent Bob is gonna chime in with a one-liner. And you know it's coming the whole time. Yeah. And you're just waiting for it. And you're just listening. You're washing your dishes and you're just like waiting for Silent Bob to chime in. Like you've decided you're going to turn off the podcast as soon as Silent Bob chimes in. It's just like, that's what the All In podcast is. It represents this panoply of new formats that are unexplored. All of the 2-person interview formats, like my traditional style, has basically been disrupted. Yeah,
and it's more inclusive, but also too, if you think about the limitations of the 2-person. By the way, I've listened to many podcasts, including yours, with 2 people, like exceptional. But like it's hard for one person within like 2 people within 90 minutes to encapsulate like the range, like even like the range of like an all-in podcast, so like scientific, academic, like ethos, pathos, logos, like really like balanced way of doing arguments. It's hard for one person to do it. Like it's like it's challenging. And also somehow, some way, I think disagreeing is easier, larger in groups. So let's say like, you know, those guys can disagree with one another. If you and I were disagreeing right now, like, you know, I'm sure we'd be fine, but it can get like it's because it's just sort of back and forth, one-on-one, and there's no like buffer. I think because of this setting, it's like harder to pull off. We should do it, man. I think it's a good idea.
Think about it.
Yeah, it is a good idea.
Let's talk full stack investor strategy and portfolio construction. You raised the $23 million fund. I want to know what your strategy has been, both at a high level and in terms of implementation, and any like key decisions along the way, key decisions and key learnings.
Yeah, sure. So $23 million fund. The goal is to have about 20 portfolio companies. It's like religion. Like you can be Jewish, atheist, Christian, whatever you want to be. As long as you're a good person, you're a good person. Reserves are important. So for me, they are. I will actually do 55% reserves to 45% entry. So I'll do a first check, and I'll do a larger second check in companies. And then the area of focus, as I think I might have highlighted, like the founder profile and someone who's like the unsung hero that I really like love and I'm like I have an affiliation to is this like repeat founder, ex VP of product or platform engineer or infrastructure who maybe built something internally in like, I don't know, data governance at a large company like LinkedIn or Oracle, or actually my first investment in preface to was a company called Strata, which is Oracle's global identity and security officer, the founder of Jump Cloud, and then the first VP of identity at Salesforce, building a new way to do distributed identity. They're in Denver. They're not again Stanford cool kid people, but they have had exits and success, and they're worth their salt, and that's all that's really required. So investing in those 18 to 20-ish companies, my average check has been around $400,000. I've sized up the last 2 or 3. Just maybe it's a sign of more confidence, but also more of what the companies actually need early on. With enterprise infrastructure, I don't know if you see this too. The round size is just bigger. You just need senior people. Like I'm not like the kind of person who's like going and trying to take 10% for a 250K in a company in Atlanta just because I can be like predatory.
Yeah, that stuff is so dumb. People are still trying to do that
well,
stuff.
People do it, but by LPs like it. LPs like it, and there's so many people who are like, oh, I back this founder and this founder. I back this GP. And I made a good decision because this GP can basically find some like totally gem company and like give them money.
Them.
Yeah, kind of. And then the thing is, too, is like you want people to have equity at the end. Like it's enough. Like it is enough for me to take anywhere between, I don't know, 2 and like 5 or even 6% of ownership for the kind of check size I just described, and like not have that be like a 25 or 30% dilution event, like for a seed round, or even like I kind of like to see dilution events go from teens. Double digit likely in like seed. A is like 20, and then hopefully the B's gone so well and the company's gone so well that like it scales down over time. And the founder hopefully has like Drew Houston had 25% of Dropbox at exit.
Did you really?
Yeah, like so like, and there's other examples of this too. Like that's what you kind of want, and I want that for my founders and my people.
Random question: how much do you think the Collison zone?
Oof. Man, they've done a good job. I don't know. I could find out, but I don't know if I'll get in trouble for it. Yeah, but what an incredible company. Irish guys, man. 2 Irish guys. And
be careful.
What? Oh, sorry. We talked.
Can't do racial segmentation.
Yeah, we can't. Even though I'm really proud of. Oh, how about this? I mentioned 2 Irish guys because it's one of the most impressive and important companies around, and they were founded. If you hear them talk, they sound different, look different, think different, act different.
Definitely.
They're just that the whole company is different. Yeah. Really, really pleased about it. Sorry, we totally strayed from portfolio construction.
I don't care.
Okay, cool.
What year does Stripe overtake Amazon as the world's most highest market cap company? And because I'm saying that because Amazon will be the highest market cap company when Stripe overtakes them.
Okay, so on an economics basis, well, if you're operating, so payments versus like, okay, what's the best part of the Amazon business is AWS. I think it contributes to like 60% of like free cash flow for that whole organization. That actually, even though like Stripe, like from a payment processor and gateway has like a better margin structure because there's less CapEx for it. To operate internationally and to expand internationally just takes time. Payments businesses are slow. Like at scale, they grow like 40, 60, 80% a year. Square was a real exception early on because they found a segment of like shopkeepers and people, and they gave hardware on the phone and like basically enabled a whole new economy. Yeah, when will it happen? I think it's going to take a long time. So even though I think the business model is cleaner for Stripe and people love the product and it's like really amazing, I think it'll take a while. I think maybe 20 years. 20 years. What, do you think it's going to happen faster?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Come on, man. Crypto? Like
you're a betting man, so we should like bet something.
Dude, speaking of which, I want to be an LP. Like I'll say it on air. I want to be an LP. I don't know. Actually, is that legal? Can I say that on air? Or is that some kind of solicitation?
I'm not fundraising.
All right, yeah. All right, whatever. I'm your spiritual LP.
No,
I'm investing in your conscience or something.
But I appreciate it, and no, I'm really, really happy that of all the successes. I mean, with the low loss ratio and all the sort of things that we talked about and performance, like the founders, man, such a good industry too.
Okay, my prediction is you said 20 years.
Yeah.
I say 10 years.
Cool. What are we betting?
An ETH.
Sure.
Okay.
ETH in current prices or not in
So I had a bet with a friend.
or present prices.
So one of my friends bet me an ETH that Tim Ferriss had a child. I was like, I've listened to enough Tim Ferriss episodes to know that Tim Ferriss does not have a child. And she's like, no, I'm really sure.
Oh, wow.
I said, you're wrong. Sorry.
Was
So that's the first ETH I won. So I'm free rolling. I'll make an ETH bet on Stripe easily.
Okay, fine. Deal.
Yeah,
but I mean, there's new leadership at Amazon, right? Andy Jassy.
Yeah, he could do something crazy. He could definitely take that. I don't know. Like that could be the kind of sort of the like counter indication is like maybe I underestimate Amazon. I just feel like ultimately, if you're looking at a 10-year, 20-year time horizon, it's more bet on culture.
Yeah.
Stripe to me feels like a step change in cultural evolution. I haven't spent. I mean, I worked at Amazon. I'm not saying I have any privileged information about like a problem with Amazon's culture. It's more that I feel like Stripe's a little bit more forward looking.
Yeah.
And Amazon essentially has a business that is levered against its culture. So the culture cannot be torn out of Amazon. You literally can't tear it out. Stripe has an orthogonal culture, and it's an orthogonal yet superior culture.
I wonder what revenue per employee is actually. Net revenue, pure net margin.
I love that statistic, by the way.
Oh, me too. It's one of the coolest ways to look at public companies, I think. That and payback and revenue retention, the list goes on. But
what is payback?
Oh, like contribution margin payback, so like sales and marketing spend, and then like the true margin.
Oh, so if I spend $1 on marketing, how long does it take to come back to me?
Truly recoup it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you look at like Zoom and some of these other ones, like quite nice from payback, and they contribute more and more. We'll see. I would actually guess maybe on the thing is Amazon does all these like crazy experimental stuff though, right? Kind of like Google does too, like with their moonshots, whatever. They have so many employees who work on things that are like not near-term revenue generating. And I feel like with something like Stripe and payments, like, okay, their next thing is like Stripe for identity, and then they'll do like trade financing. That's all kind of tangential to their core product. And I think Amazon's a little bit more of a step change. I mean, it's kind of crazy that an e-commerce retail business is also like a cloud compute provider.
I love it.
It's super cool. Yeah.
Are there any other what are the other credible next ups to becoming? So I just love
the biggest company of all time.
Biggest company of all time, or more just like there's this class of company I define as the general compute company. It's like Microsoft is a general compute company, Amazon's a general compute company, Stripe is a general compute company. What are the companies that have like credible roadmap to being general compute companies? I almost feel like I'm trying to think about like the ones. Like, who are the up-and-comers who could potentially get there? I kind of think like Vercel, maybe, because Vercel's weird. But who else is weird enough to potentially become a general compute company?
Could we reverse track it? I mean, would you include like NVIDIA or AMD in this?
No.
No, okay. So I'm a little more further up. No, I do.
Like, the qualification like literally has to have the potential to become an Amazon-sized business. General compute company.
If a company can pull off being like, workflow plus like CMS is a big enough market.
Come on, man. It's culture. Like, culture is a huge thing here. Like, culture, it's like culture and product development strategy is like really what we're talking about here.
And access and access to capital.
And access to capital.
Like the whole time. It's a good question. Is it general compute? The thing is, I don't want, even though I know they've operated so beautifully and crazy, because I just feel like a little bit of an old school company at this point. I would want to say Salesforce.
Yeah, that's a good one actually.
Because
a really good one.
Well, because like they've done all this sort of stuff, and like okay, like
no, the Slack acquisition was definitive.
Oh yeah, so they have Slack stuff, then they have this like like they're gonna do more in like RevOps, RevOps, sales ops, marketing and sales alignment. They have their whole cloud, like, and they're just like they came from Oracle, like they're big company people.
Yes.
Like that thing should exist and will exist. I guess it's just a big company at this point.
And they casually own Heroku, by the way.
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah.
So they have a burgeoning cloud provider business also that is totally underestimated. Heroku is really underestimated. What should we close on? What's the topic we can close on?
A couple companies or two that we're both excited by.
Sure.
We talked about big companies.
Let's do that. Let's do 2 portfolio companies each.
Oh, sure. You can go first.
All right, we'll do alternating. I'm gonna say render.com.
Tell me about Render.
Render. You haven't heard of render.com?
No.
Stripe employee number 9, I believe, Anurag Goel. basically with a vision to redo cloud. Basically starting with you're a developer, you have some specific use case. You want to spin up a MySQL database, you want to spin up a container and run your application in it. Very determined use cases. I can't even describe the business very well, except other than it's well-designed cloud. Take cloud from the ground up, design it very well, make it make the economics work. Eventually, he's going to go in the data center business probably in the next couple of years, I would guess, or 3 years. I have no privileged information. But like that was one of the biggest personal investments I made.
I love that. I love it when you go beyond like what feels like maybe uncomfortable.
That's what happened. I did not sleep super well that night because like, look, I've gone broke twice, literally twice in my life. So like making a big bet on a very speculative asset is a little hard for me.
Amen. Yeah.
Okay, so I did one. Now
cool.
You do first.
So one that I'm excited about, I love investing in companies that feel like blue ocean versus red ocean. So you and I have talked about this before offline, engineering analytics and like what's like an understanding of like, is a developer productive? Like he or she or they, like how are they? How can we measure this? How can we kind of communicate and see it? And man, I've seen a lot of these companies that just do like Git analytics, like pull and push, and then some companies that try to analyze code bases in like in an AI type of way, which is really hard. And that's like a research level problem. And I don't think it's like the answers are good enough yet. There's a company I invested in Salt Lake City, and the founder's name is Abhinoda. He was the founder of Pull Panda. Which I think was at GitHub, bought it for some money. And his entire career has been dedicated to developer productivity and experience. And his first version of his company was this sort of engineering analytics, what's the code base, how many developers, like this type of stuff. That what he came to me, and like I love it. Like people who like kind of come back from the forest and they pitch me like, look, I've been doing this the whole time, but I think it's all wrong. Like what is right, actually, it's a qualitative solution. So it's a surveying company. So there's all these the companies that like Culture Amp and 15Five that basically do like HR performance management. I pass in a bunch of these businesses because I thought it was low tech. Maybe it's one of my biases. Some of them have done really, really, really well, and you can quantify that qualitative feedback. Imagine doing it specifically for a developer. Like, hey, like what's your bottleneck right now? Or hey, like have you done this versus that? And basically like getting qualitative feedback from developers inside the workflow without being disruptive. And it's the company is now being used, or the product's now being used by like 3 or 4 Fortune 100 customers. And it's like, it's not a really big team, but it just does the solution right and correct, and does the engineering analytics as well. And so you can basically know if your developers are productive, know if they're happy, know if they're staying, and actually be able to quantify ROI and see how technical debt gets accrued. It's pretty cool. So that's mine. That was my first one.
Okay, that's your first one.
Yeah,
okay, my second one.
Well, watch that space. And
Great one. That's another one I want to interview.
Yeah. Very worth it.
And by the way, in that same category, I think we talked about this a little bit. You have the OKHQ, the WayDev suite like type of product, which I think is pretty cool. It's sort of the full stack engineering dashboard productivity thing.
And I want these companies to be successful, by the way, because it's pretty bad. I don't.
On the other hand, I kind of disagree with the whole category at a certain level because
tell me about it.
Look, I never like being told what to do, and I don't like people basically sending me a report of how I'm doing. Like I'll tell you how I'm doing is my attitude. Like you want to know how I'm doing? Like you want to know how much productivity I'm doing? Ask me. If you have an organization where you basically need to put in complete metrics-driven approaches to quantifying everything, like you're working in a bureaucracy.
Well, it sounds like you actually might like this company because they ask you.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's qualitative. I mean, that's basically what you're saying. So it's a qualitative thing. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to take like the strong position there, but I hate seeing overseer. I don't like having an overseer. I don't like having, whether it's a robotic or it's anyway. Yeah. But I mean, I see the pros and cons. What's my second one? What's my second company? Let's say Dev, obviously. I should just say Dev. Dev's the first personal investment I ever made.
Oh, really?
I'm literally wearing a Dev shirt right now.
That's a good one.
I ordered like every
colors.
item in the Dev store recently because I'm rooting for them so hard.
That's awesome.
Basically, they are going to redefine social networking.
Cool.
Like I'm
I've
totally
actually heard of this company even before you mentioned it, and it sounds like fascinating.
I'm totally talking my book here, but they are the first credible open source social network. The first credible open source social network. And just think about that. What does it actually mean? I mean, WordPress is kind of an open source social network if you really stretch your imagination.
I get the
But
argument.
there's honestly nothing there. There's nothing like it. It's got network effects. The network effects are moving. Like, this is just going to be it's going to be such a gigantic force. It's going to be a Facebook level force in our lives.
Cool.
I've seen their mobile product. The mobile product is amazing. I've seen their community. I've seen the passion behind their community. They have such momentum. This is seriously the next big thing.
I can't wait.
I'm totally talking my book right now.
No, it's okay. But also too, this is another good thing about being in the Silicon Valley. Like, these things can happen. They can happen freaking fast too.
They could happen really fast.
Yeah. Like in 10 years, like all of the companies we just talked about could totally be irrelevant. Maybe not Stripe or Amazon.
Yeah.
Or any of the companies in my portfolio, yours.
Right.
Just kidding.
Well, no, this comes back to so like,
things move. I'm joking, but like things move really, really, really quickly.
so you saw the recent the Martin Casado post about cloud cost. Did you see that one?
No, I might have missed it.
Okay, so he published this post about cloud cost and was arguing for cloud repatriation. Basically, the thing that Dropbox did. You know how Dropbox moved off the cloud.
Yeah, put
so
it inside.
He sort of is making a weird argument that's like kind of like everybody should be thinking of cloud repatriation basically
at some point,
but that's not actually the point he was making. Really, the point he was making was, or the point that he and his co-author were making was essentially that cloud is expensive. That's really all he was saying, was cloud is expensive.
Amen, man.
Amen, right? And the reason I bring that up is because none of these companies are dying. Literally none of these products that we're talking about, the enterprise products, none of them are dying. At worst case, they get acquired by some private Vista Equity, right?
Yeah, sure.
Literally,
Thoma
worst case
Bravo,
scenario, Vista
whatever.
Equity vultures them up.
Yep.
So because they're all infra.
Yep.
Which is amazing because basically the really good companies that are being built are high margin. If you're a high margin business, you can afford for any product and service that you need to run your business. It just goes under COGS, and the COGS just grow and grow and grow. So the COGS grow and grow and grow and grow. The size of the business grows and grows and grows and grows. This is the renaissance.
Yeah, cool. I like that. I like that a lot.
Your last company. Okay,
my
last company. Sorry to rant.
No, that was great. Last company, man, I love them like children. I really do. I do love. I love Strata. So Strata. I'd mentioned it's there are a lot of companies that try to say like, hey, like we're going to be Okta for cloud or for SMEs or whatever. In the identity and access management world, one of the reasons why VPs of identity exist is because there's some part of the infrastructure that's just hard to cover. And most often, even though I know that like on-premise, the spend is still significant and growing, and actually there's some more workloads and for on-prem than there is cloud, even though cloud is moving quicker. These guys have figured out a way in a MuleSoft style way to basically have like a true single sign-on. And they're an 17-month-old company, and they have 3 Fortune 100 customers using them for like 6-figure, 7-figure type of deal, and it's good. And once you have identity and access management and pure kind of like coverage of your total infrastructure, you can for the first time really enforce policy. Like CTOs, like, they dream of policy and like policy enforcement and management, but you can't really do these things unless you have the connecting pieces. And Strata, I think, really can. And they're a Denver team, and they were distributed even before the pandemic, which is cool. Kind of a minority, right? I mean, like GitLab, yes, and there's a handful of others that are distributed. They were distributed since day one. So I'm really, really, really happy. And if you guys want to feel free to get in touch.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely do a show on that.
Yeah.
So, but that's post Okta IAM stuff?
Yes, exactly. So like people can use Okta. Okta is just one part of it all, right? Because it only really covers like cloud applications and like some parts of cloud applications. There's so much on-premise stuff, and you might have your LDAP thing, or you might have Microsoft SharePoint. Like there's so many identity systems. Think about all the domains you have. Think about how domain logins you have and how many names you have to kind of create for yourself. Like why? Like why are there so many of them? There should be few. There should be one. And in that way, enterprises will actually know and can kind of quantify your risk and your behavior and who you are, and shut things off and shut things on and do all these sort of things. And it's a really critical and important problem. Digital identity is something I love and think about. I've had different cuts of that in my portfolio, but like this cut of it, which I think can really be like a multi-billion, 10 billion type of business or even more, is Strata. So
Okay,
this is cool. I love my portfolio. Like, and it's I believe in them so much.
Well, it really does. So I made this first dev investment like at this point 3 or 4 years ago. Since then, I've just been picking up little investments, little pieces of little companies that I knew something about. No, it's so.
I follow you. I find it really interesting the stuff you invest in. By the way,
thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's totally a statement of like what you believe about the world of software.
Oh yeah,
and by extension, the world of business. It's basically
yeah. Think about where the money comes from, right? It is a reflection of your time.
Yes.
You have used your time to create some resources for yourself, and like who are you putting it behind?
All right, one other topic I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Let's say like a venture works out like as well as you could imagine. So let's say your next fund is whatever you want to make it, 100 or 60 or whatever. And then your next fund after that is even bigger. And then eventually,
hypothetically, if I want to go that big, but yeah.
So did you see what Bedrock did with this Czech company?
Did
we talk about this?
We talked about it a little bit. I'm like a fan of them from afar. And like I think we were mentioning best thesis, best thesis, loose thesis ever, but specific too.
Yeah,
I have love from afar.
The whole narrative violation thing it's a great brand.
It's genius.
Great branding exercise.
Yeah.
But what I like most about them is the fact that they incubated a company called Check. Like they literally just incubated a company and said, we're going to do this. We're going to spin it out. It's a great thesis. Let's just do it. Let's put together the team. Let's just make it happen.
So cool.
And I believe different people have done this sort of thing. A lot of it, I think, takes the form of an EIR program where you bring in an entrepreneur who's thinking about ideas, and then the EIR sort of ideates within the context of the firm. But really, with Check, it seemed like, as far as I know, Eric and Jeff, the founders,
is Check in stealth, by the way?
It's not in stealth.
Oh, cool.
No, it's definitely not in stealth. No, there's check.com.
They bought the domain? It's a great domain.
I think they have check.com.
Not bad.
Which is the same number of letters as Stripe and the same syllables as Stripe. And the whole idea is we're reverse Stripe. There's Stripe, but for outgoing payments.
Cool.
So Stripe is incoming payments. There's Stripe for outgoing payments, which is like brilliant. That's a huge idea.
Yeah.
But I just like the idea that basically, if you think about it from their point of view, and I've heard, I think there's a solo capitalist who is a very, very successful solo capitalist, probably the first one that comes to mind if you think success.
Does it rhyme with Schmucky Froome?
Perhaps, yes, exactly. Actually, yes, perhaps exactly it does. But, I was talking to him about why he does what he does, and
actually, Oren Zeev was, I think, the first OG.
Oh, that one's great. He's
a killer.
He did Trip Actions. He did all the great Israeli companies.
So many. He's a really nice guy too. One of my mentors, Mike Chalfin, who's my first boss. They're good friends, and it's funny. I think Mike became a solo GP because he saw Oren do it successfully, and I became a solo GP because I saw Mike do it successfully.
But what he said was, I'm doing venture because I'm just sort of in between ideas. Like, he's a serial entrepreneur, then he worked at Stripe, and then, you get to learn a ton doing venture. Not that he's like, part-time venture capitalist at all. Like, the guy did the Daily Series A, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's brilliant. But I like the idea that basically, if you're talented, just do multi-mode. You're an investor and an entrepreneur, and like you wake up on whatever side of the bed you want to wake up on any given day. And if you want to do investing, you do investing. If you want to start a company, go start a company.
Yep.
That's, I think, that's certainly what I want to do. So that's what I'm asking you is like, is there a company you want to start at some point?
Oh.
Like, do you want to do both at the same time?
Wow.
Because it's the whole Warren Buffett thing, right? You learn how to invest from your businesses. You learn how to run businesses from your investments.
I would do something maybe at some point in the future. But I have a bit of a philanthropic bent. So like, where do I see like great inequality in the world? Maybe something in education or healthcare in an emerging market. And maybe it's like, for my selfish benefit, maybe it's in a geo where, I don't know, like I have like family or I want to learn the language. But honestly, like, I don't have a specific idea like that. And then and when I do, I usually give them to entrepreneurs who I wind up backing to do said idea. That's more in my world. Yeah, good. It's.
But the ideal situation there is that you're chairman, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Actually, and speaking of Israelis do this a lot, and they do it really successfully.
Oh,
I know that. Oh yeah, for sure. Like the Checkpoint founders do this a lot. Like I know Shlomo Kramer's done this a lot too, where they'll basically like give like meaningful seed capital and have like decent chunk of the company, and then incubate it. I think incubation's awesome. And like Atomic is done super well. I guess in LA where I am, like Peter Pham and like the science group and the consumer side. Yeah, it's amazing. I want to get closer to it too. Like
but you run into a lot of complexity, right? It becomes really complicated and potentially damaging if you get something wrong.
Damaging how or for who?
Well, let's say you start to be known as we do it all kind of thing. Like we do it all, and then actually our portfolio is not doing well, and our like the company that I'm chairman of is not doing well, and we're failing in everything. We're not focused on anything.
I've seen this.
Then you look like a dumpster fire.
Yeah, and then people have to kind of step into the company and like become like interim CEO. I've seen this happen at venture firms. This is the benefit of at least for me, like being, you know, speaking my own book a little bit here, just being specific. I mean, I don't think I'm best suited to like, you know, for like a direct to consumer like purse brand. Even though I know lots of, you know, like I could maybe I could do it. I know some of the names and stuff, and I have sisters, and you know, I've bought gifts. But like in enterprise infrastructure, like if you limit your scope a little bit more, hopefully you'll have compounding learnings. That's why I sort of hope with these incubation models that they actually have some more commonalities, right? More commonalities with one another, and like and I've seen a few emerge in like healthcare, for example, like incubating healthcare companies. There's so many missing pieces. So anyway, no one really incubates infrastructure companies. I mean, I guess like Sutter Hill, Go, Snowflake.
Snowflake, yeah.
And I know Sequoia, I guess you can argue like even Cisco, sort of.
Yeah, I think also
a handful.
I think
right?
one that I interviewed recently was called R2. I think it was R2C.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this.
I think that was an
cool.
incubated company.
Nice.
But
Very
anyway,
cool.
Yeah. Should we wrap up?
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
This is
awesome.
This
Very
was
fun.
delightful.
Very fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Seriously, it's been great getting to know you over the last year.
Likewise, man. And I'm excited for all the good things to be, and excited for your book, by the way.
Thank you.
I can't wait. I haven't read it yet. I'm actually was going to plan on buying it and then having you sign it. So
I'll give you a signed copy tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a bunch.
Oh, cool.
And also the audiobook is now freely available on my podcast. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, shoot. I'll check it out.
Literally just like subscribe to my podcast and download it.
I consume more via Audible and audiobook because your ears have more endurance in your eyes. Anyway, on that note, kids, read your books. Anyway, thanks again very, very much. And thanks for listening, guys.
Awesome.